Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from the capital of Northern BC, Prince George. Beautiful day. Amazingly, it's October the 12th. I believe it is the 12th. And it's a beautiful, beautiful fall day. It could be August for all intents and purposes. I have a very special guest, and a fellow that I've known for a long time, and a friend, Roy Stewart, is our guest.
Thank
Roy,
you, John. Thank you for the invitation.
welcome to my podcast. So, tell us a little bit about you and your background, Roy. You've been here for a long, long time.
Now, let's not overdo the longs.
Okay.
All right. But let me take you a little before that.
Okay.
I was born in the Kootenays.
Yeah.
My wife says that's where all the Coots live, but it's
Yeah.
in the Kootenays, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up in Kimberley, BC.
Okay.
It's over a mile high.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if I got brain damage through lack of oxygen. But we moved to Creston, and that's where I finished my high school. I went to university in Vancouver at UBC, undergraduate, and my degree in law. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Education is the foundation for a successful life, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Not only that, I think education is the foundation for our democracy. The more people know and exercise critical thinking, the better off we all are.
Right.
So that education has always guided me.
Yeah.
Became a school trustee when my kids were small here. Became the chair of the board.
How many kids have you got?
I have 3 boys.
2 boys? What are
Three
the,
of them.
What are the names?
Robert, Ian, and David.
Okay, what are they doing?
Well, Robert is I call him an impresario. He's in Vancouver. He has a music studio. He's turned old warehouses into jam spaces.
Okay.
He has a company that does that. He has 150 of those. Rents them out by the hour, the day, the month, or the year to wannabe rock stars.
Wow. Good.
He did a pilot of a proposed TV program where all the characters in that sort of wannabe rock star business were characters in this episode that they were preparing as a pilot for a television program.
Right.
It's a very interesting life, but he's recently become quite ill.
Right.
And that bothers me a lot, but he's making a comeback.
Right.
My youngest, David, has a...
How old is he?
Oh, he's 38.
Yeah.
And he has a biochemistry degree.
You what?
Biochemistry.
Okay.
And he works in a laboratory in the Vancouver area.
Right.
They do environmental testing and so on.
Right.
And that's what he loves to do.
Yeah.
My middle son, Ian, he has a number of learning difficulties,
Okay.
but he's living with his mother in Victoria.
Yeah.
And he's just a lovely boy, lovely
Yeah.
guy. And he's 40 years old. And
Yeah.
I God help him, I hope everything turns out well for him.
Yeah.
But, that's the luck of the draw for people. You're
Yeah.
born, you have your abilities or your disabilities.
I had learning difficulties too.
Yeah, well, my youngest has Asperger syndrome,
Right.
which on that spectrum means he's extraordinarily bright, well-focused,
Yeah.
but no social skills.
Yeah.
If I tell him a joke,
Yeah.
he thinks it's about him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but he's very capable, very
Yeah.
well. He does his job very well.
Yeah.
So the kids are there, but I a school trustee, chairman, then there was no university, so I joined the Ontario University Society.
Now, the
1988.
University Society was the pre-organization to getting the University of Northern British Columbia?
It was a society created by interested people throughout northern BC to advocate for the creation of a university in northern British Columbia.
Correct.
And it's because of the activity of that organization that we, quite frankly, got the university.
How many signatures?
Well, on the petition, there were 16,000, and you had to pay $5 to sign.
Yeah.
That money was used to prepare a report by an eminent international scholar on distance learning, so we could have a
From
plan.
Sweden.
From Sweden, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Daloff.
Yeah, I remember him well.
And that was an indication of the feasibility of the
Yeah.
university.
Yeah.
But the provincial government at the time was indifferent. So I became president.
That was the Van der Zam Government?
Van der Zalm Government, yes. And our local MLA, Bruce Strachan,
Yeah.
after our efforts to embarrass the government, and we
Right.
got rid of Stan Hagen, who was a complete idiot as far as I was concerned on this topic,
Yeah.
they put Bruce in charge of advanced education, and that signaled to me, we're going to do it. We're going to
Yeah.
get it. And we did.
Yeah. And then the ridings, the Prince George North and Prince George Mount Robson were the key ridings that were involved?
Well, I think when you take northern British Columbia, there
Yeah.
were actually 5 ridings that were
Yeah.
at stake.
Yeah.
If the government ignored this issue, which the people of northern British Columbia embraced
Yeah.
fervently,
Yeah.
they would lose those ridings
Yeah.
or not have a chance of those ridings.
Right.
That made the difference, I think. We were able to convince them that they were on the edge or the brink of losing those ridings.
Right.
And that made the whole difference.
Now, I remember that time we had an annual AGM of the Social Security Party in Penticton. I was the riding president for Prince George North. We took busloads of people down there with signs, the University of Northern British Columbia, and it took a lot of twisting of arms and politicking to get it done, and you obviously played a major role there. So did a number of other people, including Murray Sadler and
Sure.
a number of other people.
Oh, yes.
In the group.
I attended their convention in Vancouver. I brought a complete pallet full of a book I published
Yeah,
on why we needed a northern university,
Yeah.
and distributed copies through,
Yeah.
on every seat in the building had a
Yeah.
copy. I addressed their convention
yeah,
and lobbied them
Yeah.
in the hallways.
yeah,
Now, I'm not saying I did everything, but
No.
we were all involved. We were all devoted to this cause.
the whole team was together.
Absolutely.
It needed the 16,000 people that paid the $5. It involved a number of people, including yourself, and then guys like Bruce Strachan and the riding presidents, including myself, obviously, that all had the same objective and the same goals. It wasn't easy, but we got it together, we got it done, and you look today, it is amazing, the University of Northern British Columbia.
It is amazing. The original projections in my book were for a participation rate to rise to the level of participation rates in the lower part of the province. We had as well so many statistics about incomplete degrees, people who had touched university but left for various reasons
Yeah.
and lived in the north. We had a participation rate issue because Indigenous people were not given the opportunity. And what a fabulous opportunity for improving the lives of people,
No
Indigenous people, to
Yeah.
have education. And the university has embraced that now. We are, in fact, involved with all of the First Nations through this
Yeah.
university.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be an amazing event for the city, and I think it defines the future.
In the region in northern BC, and it continues to go forward further.
It does. It's a defining thing, and so that event was, I think, critical to the future of this area and the city. And I think students don't understand that.
Yeah.
I go to the university. In this election, I went to the university and paraded the halls offering free food and coffee.
Yeah.
But the price for that is to have to listen to me,
Yeah.
tell them why they should vote
Yeah.
for me, right? But they had no idea how that university actually came about.
No.
And it's like virtually everything. People take for granted what's around them. They don't really have a sense of the past
Yeah.
about that. So, but it was fascinating. A number of other things that I've been involved in. I don't know. I don't want to go on too much, but there are a lot of things that I've had a chance to be involved with that have made a difference here. And it's all volunteer. It's
Yeah.
all, I don't do this for gain. I don't do this for fame. I just do it because it's the right thing
It's
to
the
do.
right thing to do, be
Yeah.
part of the culture, and it's. So now you came to Prince George after you finished your law degree at UBC, and how many years ago? 45, 46 years ago?
I came here in 76,
76.
so 46 years ago.
46 years ago, and then you practiced law, And, now for our guests that are listening and watching, tell us a little bit about law. There are differences. There is civil law, and there is other forms of legal.
Well, in my world, which is the practice of law,
criminal law.
You have a criminal law facet to the practice. You have civil law. These are the two divisions in, let's call it, English-speaking Canada.
Right.
In Quebec, you have the Civil Code,
right,
which is quite a bit different in terms of the evolution of the law.
Right.
Because the Civil Code runs from a prescription. In the civil law side in English Canada, it runs from precedent, case precedent.
Right.
How the law evolves, how the so-called common law evolves,
right,
is on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
And it's very responsive to social issues,
right,
social matters. And a prescriptive society where you have a code, I don't think it's as necessarily as responsive to changes in society. But
right,
apart from that, when you practice law, no one can master the entire spectrum of the legal framework.
No.
So you have to choose how you're going to make a living, what sort of law you're going to practice. And I do the civil side. I don't do criminal. I isolate myself from family law and tax law, but generally everything else.
Those again are specialties within
right.
the law.
Yeah. For example, tax is a very refined specialty.
Yeah.
You would need to have a lot of resources and a lot of connection in the accounting world and training in that area.
Yeah.
And I didn't opt for that. I didn't want that.
Right.
I'm from a small town.
Yeah.
I'm from small towns.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't interested in practicing in a large urban environment where you don't know your neighbor. It's very difficult to make friends.
Yeah.
I love this community because people are so friendly, so open. You can get involved in virtually anything that interests you.
Yeah.
You can become so involved in that you eventually can become a leader in that area.
Yeah, which is amazing. And again, for our guests watching us from around the world, actually, Prince George is a community that was established in 1914. It's virtually one, lifetime ago. Mm-hmm. And then now has about 80,000, 75 to 80,000.
I think there are more people here than that. The census, I believe, is wrong.
Yeah.
And why do I say that? Well, I believe a lot of people don't file their census forms.
Possibly.
That, for whatever reason, and
Yeah.
it's a peculiar situation,
Yeah.
the past Conservative government allowed people to elect whether they wished to file their census form.
Yeah.
So I believe a lot of people believe, I'm sure this is why, in their own independence, and they're not going to sort of plug into a government exercise.
Right.
So I sense there's a lot of people who didn't file that. And
Right.
just having the, I guess, tactile experience of motoring around, walking around, talking,
Right.
this city has become more and more crowded
Yeah.
than it was in prior census.
I agree with that. Yeah. More so than likely 80,000. I have the same feeling and didn't quite know why. But
Well, then on the outskirts, of course, you've got developments outside the city's boundaries.
Correct.
You have all sorts of residential developments, and
Yeah.
I think the population in these outskirts has grown significantly.
Yeah.
So they're not counted in the actual census either.
Yeah, but still part of the community.
They're
really.
part of the economic community here,
Yeah.
where people shop and sell and do whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Now I want to know a little bit more about you as a lawyer, specializing in certain areas. Then again, for the benefit of our guests, if they kind of look you up, then it says QC.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Well, the QC is an acronym for Queen's Counsel.
Right.
Now, that has been around for probably 500 years.
Right.
It's reserved for lawyers of distinction.
Yeah.
Only 7% by statute of the lawyers practicing at any one time can have that designation. And that is on the recommendation of judges, lawyers, the Attorney General, and so on. It's a recognition of that lawyer as being in a different category, if you will, than other lawyers. It's a very prideful thing, if you will, to be designated that way. And I've had clients from all over the world, actually, or not clients, but people who wish to be my clients, and I'm not interested in traveling to Zurich,
No.
come to me because I have the QC, and coupled to that, I have what you have, which is a Doctor of Law honorary degree.
I was going to mention that because it would be incomplete if I did not ask you the next question. Now, where does that put me? Because I got an honorary Doctors of Laws degree. So maybe talk about that a little bit too. Because you do as well. So not are you a real lawyer and a QC nonetheless, but you also have an honorary Doctors of Laws degree from the University of Northern British Columbia.
Well, the University of Northern British Columbia recognizes me as a founder.
Yeah.
And they have honored me by giving me the highest honorary distinction they can offer, which is a Doctor of Law honorary degree. And that was given to me due to my involvement, my leadership, and my thorough commitment to the founding of this university. As President Dan Weeks at the time said, when asked what role did Roy have, he said Roy was the legal brains behind getting this university.
Right.
I took that as a supreme
Right.
compliment. But the Doctor of Laws is not in any way, anyone who has it is not in any way trained to practice law. It's simply a distinction offered by a university to someone of extraordinary merit, and that is how it happens. In my legal training at UBC and in any other university in the world, you cannot attain by study a Doctor of Law. That is reserved by the university for the distinction.
Correct.
For people of merit, right? That
Correct.
Philanthropists get it, and other people who are distinguished in some particular way get it. So I'm very, very honored to have that in addition. So what
And
happened,
so am I.
I'm positive you are. And what I get on the social, or not social media, but in my email, are invitations from all over the world to attend conferences. I even had one invitation from a university group in Mumbai, wanting me to be the guest
Of all
speaker.
places.
A guest speaker at a conference on the law of the sea, as if I had some ability to do that. But they look for the distinguishing characteristics of
Right.
the QC and honorary doctorate, and I think they see
Yeah.
that as somehow reserved for a very small fraction of lawyers that must know everything.
Yeah.
So that's
Implying that from the, yeah.
due to the death of the Queen,
Yeah.
the Law Society has indicated that I can no longer use the QC. It must now be a KC.
Oh,
It's a
that'd
transition.
be a difference.
I would have preferred to retain,
Just leave it.
leave it, because I loved that old lady. She was
Yeah.
a wonderful person.
Yes.
And I would like to know, when people look at the distinguishing things of my signature, I would like them to know that it was given to me a long time ago,
Right.
so that it was, of some distinction for quite some time. Not a KC, which is just...
Doesn't come natural, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Anyway, that's part of my history, I guess, as a lawyer.
Okay, that then being said, Roy, the other thing about you, and obviously I've known you for a long time, is that you're very involved in golf and the golf clubs around the area. That is one thing, and I can go immensely down the list. I know you've been very, very involved in the symphony and a number of other things that you've been doing. Tell a little bit about all of that. In the same with the legal profession, you've been very, very involved in the provincial levels of managing these, if it is a society of lawyers, or in that organization in some forms or fashion.
Well, one of the features of practicing law is that you're required annually to take continuing legal education courses.
On an annual basis?
On an annual basis, you
Yeah.
have to do this. Now, depending on the choices that are available, it might be of benefit. If they're available in the area you practice, it might be a benefit. But typically, there's not enough choice. So you end up taking courses on things that would never be applied in your practice. But what I do is I try to get involved in the teaching side of those courses.
Okay.
So that you can give practical advice, you can give lectures on esoteric topics in the law. And that I enjoy that. When I practiced municipal law, I would go to the so-called subsections of the Canadian Bar on municipal law in Vancouver by invitation and give talks on aspects of the regulatory system that municipalities use. So that's been part of my efforts over the years as an involved lawyer in the practice. Beyond that, for the law, it's just a matter of you being on such good terms with fellow practitioners.
Right.
I believe entirely in the phenomenon of the lawyers being friends, being brothers at the law. We can fight all day in a courtroom, but we can go have a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the objective sense of your practice. You're not so identified with your client that it becomes personal. You're
Correct.
simply trying to deal with how that client's situation can be applied to the law and how the result can be for the best interests of that client.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a brotherhood in that sense. I mean, sometimes lawyers will get a little heated in dealing with a subject, but they have to be reminded that this is not a matter for personal aspects. It's a matter of dispassionate, objective application of the law, because really all you're trying to do is find the strategic best interest of your client, and they may be in the wrong or they may be in the right. But if you can ameliorate the effect on your client on the wrong side to minimize the damages, or on the successful side to maximize the benefits, that's really what you do.
Yeah, and the other part about it is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that sometimes, with all due respect to people that are wronged or believe they have been wronged, that they will then automatically assume that all they have to do is go to court and the judge will agree to that and then remedy in some form the wrong that has been done to them. It doesn't work that simple, does it?
No, it doesn't. You need effective representation.
Yeah.
This is called an adversary system.
Correct.
Everybody puts on the best effort they can to promote their side of the case. If you don't have effective representation, the system doesn't work.
No.
So if you go all on your own as a layperson,
Yeah.
and maybe it's a criminal charge or something, and you've got all the resources of the state against you, you're going to fall into a trap there.
Yeah.
You're going to go down.
You cannot win.
You cannot win. But if you have effective representation, that's how we balance the system. And it may be that the Crown's case has a significant evidentiary flaw that wouldn't be recognized by a layperson.
Correct.
See, we have a legal services society in this province that funds legal aid, it's called,
Yeah.
where unrepresented people can have a lawyer to help them.
Appointed by the government.
Well, appointed by the government, but they're
fine.
independent practitioners.
Yeah, yeah,
The problem is the government doesn't fund that very well.
yeah.
And the effective basis to make a living for a lawyer loses its viability because of the low levels of pay. And the government doesn't seem to recognize that what's at stake here is the viability of the entire judicial system.
Correct.
When you don't have adequate representation. They
Yeah.
see it as some
That is
sort
worse
of game.
than having no representation, maybe.
Indeed, and they see it as some sort of game where they can cheap out on the judicial system.
Yeah.
And that has bothered me for years, and it doesn't matter, it seems, how you voice that to the
Yeah.
people who are elected.
Yeah.
They never get it. They just
Yeah.
see it as a part of a budget that needs to be trimmed or something.
Yeah.
They don't see it as fundamental.
It's a money issue.
It is a money issue.
Yeah, from
And-
the government. So the other thing I was going to mention, Jude, the other thing that I always find unique about the legal system and it should be avoided as much as possible, obviously, for obvious reasons. But to be in cross-examination, which is part of the balancing of, of the legal system, it is, being in cross-examination where you have lawyers testing you to the truth or trying to find ways in. How does that all kind of work?
Well, cross-examination, I refer to it as the crucible of the truth. This is where you have the opportunity to take perhaps the assumptions that a witness is making when they voice effectively a statement about the case and question those assumptions so that the witness soon realizes that, hey, I really don't have a basis for that assumption, and perhaps my statement about this case is actually not provable. Because the burden a person has in the courtroom is to be able to prove their case. And if you're basing it on assumptions or hearsay evidence or things that cannot be actually proven, then your case falls apart. So that's the role of a lawyer, to expose the fallacies of whatever you're trying to put forward. Now, it works on both sides. So the judge gets a sense of where this is going and whether a witness has the ability to actually maintain the propositions they're talking about. And that adversarial system works because at some point, something may fall apart. Because they can't demonstrate any basis to believe what they're saying.
Exactly.
It's a lot like conspiracy theory believers. I heard this on the internet. Well, who said it? Somebody who said they were a doctor. How do you know they were a doctor? Well, they said so. But they don't actually have any evidence to substantiate the opinion of someone who also says he's a doctor. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
So, but people are not used in the ordinary course of their lives living in the world of evidentiary proof. They have a sense that if they hear it and it's believable, then it must be true. But the crucible of the truth is to test all of the assumptions that you're making and come to a conclusion about whether it's believable.
And it's always been very interesting to explore that with somebody like yourself, who is an expert in that field, and I'm sure is of interest to our guest. So now, the other thing that happened to Roy Stewart, QC, and with the honorary degree of law of UNBC, decided one morning he was going to become a politician. How did that all happen?
Well, I have to tell you, it didn't happen on one morning.
Okay.
For many years, I have been dissatisfied, I can put it that way, with the work that went on at the city. Now, I'm not blaming anyone in particular.
No.
But it's policy choices, and it's, let's call it, having the ability to see the higher ordered principles of what should be done. Never mind being mesmerized by the problem of the day. You want to get to the heart of how this city can be made a better place to live in for all of us. And it's not happening because of either short-sightedness or a lack of leadership. And that's what motivated me to consider this. I don't need the money. I mean, the mayor's salary is not the best job I've ever had, but I want to make things better, and I decided that that's what I would do. Now,
to walk the talk, right?
Well, to talk the talk and to walk the walk. People recently have had forums on things like homelessness. And it's a problem. It's accelerating as a problem. And they ask, what is your plan to deal with homelessness? And then they want to define the term, and they want to do all sorts of things that limit the discussion. But I think we have to go back to the basic roots of this. The homeless people are people who have no self-respect. They haven't got the dignity of a life well lived. They're trapped in an addiction cycle or a mental illness problem. And they aren't getting the assistance they require as ordinary human beings to escape that dilemma. It's not a homeless issue, therefore. It is an issue associated with a lack of medical treatment for addiction and or mental health issues. And that is a provincial government responsibility. That is not a city, it's not within the city's jurisdiction. So when you're asked, what is the city going to do? The city cannot spend its money on matters that are not within its jurisdiction. That is completely wrong. You cannot do that. What you have to do as a city is ameliorate the problems of these people as best you can. And I'm thinking of short-term housing, a secure place to sleep, a door that will close, so you're not preyed upon by people that you want to avoid. Short term. What you need in the long term is for the provincial government to step up with what I'm calling an institution or a framework where people can have treatment and, when cured or medicated reasonably, be reintegrated into society. That's the ultimate solution. We can't condemn these people for what they are. We can't arrest our way out of this. We have to deal with it on the highest ordered sense that this is a dilemma of drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and mental health issues. And treatment of those is not something the city can buy and spend money on. We need the provincial government to do that. And the provincial government is failing to do that. It is failing in this most crucial situation. They can't seem to get their act together. They want to study it. They want to kick it down the road. They want to do all sorts of things, but do the right thing. And this phenomenon isn't just Prince George. It's all over every community.
It is.
Except Williams Lake.
Yeah.
And all of the elected officials in those cities are clamoring for some provincial effort.
But it's not unique to the one party, the NDP or the BC
No, not
Liberals.
at all. Not at all.
So it is something structurally, or at least from a policy perspective, is missing, because it seems to be getting worse, not better.
Agreed.
And especially after COVID-19.
You could say it's a problem that transcends politics. It is not something that one party is responsible for and or whatever. It is a issue that has to be dealt with whoever is in government.
Yeah.
Now, this can't be left to time and study and everything else. We all know what the real issue is. We all know there's a solution. We need to get the elected officials in all of these communities to focus the government's attention and to tell the government that if they don't do this, every one of us, the elected officials, will campaign against them in the next election, and you won't have power. And the only thing that politicians fear is losing power. Mm-hmm. So we can do this. Mm-hmm. We can force the government to do what is the right thing. But we just simply need to organize, focus, and make a kind of dramatic commitment to this.
Yeah. Be quite a challenge to bring everybody on board, right?
Well, I have a feeling that it's not going to be much of a challenge after this next set of municipal elections. Why do I say that?
Right.
Because this problem, endemic in so many communities, is bringing into elected office people more to the right of center than left of center.
Right.
So there's a community of philosophy, if you will, about how government should function and what should be done that's changing due to these local elections.
Yeah, and more right of center than... And then going a little bit further there, that's obviously one of the serious issues to be dealt with on a provincial basis, but also on a community basis in some form or fashion. What other policies are, from your particular perspective, are key to you in regards to not only Prince George, but Prince George, I always believe, and that's why I introduced it during my podcasting as the capital of Northern BC. In my opinion, probably 75% of the gross national product, the GDP of the province, is generated in Northern BC, but we are not getting the benefits from it for Northern BC. How do we stimulate investment, creating of jobs, and subsequently, the tax basis for these communities to expand and provide the services?
What you just said is as if you're reading my platform. We have to expand the tax base, and we have to make this area obviously the right choice for investment. We are at the crossroads of transportation, highways and railways. We are at the crossroads of hydro. We are surrounded by natural resources. We have here a well-educated workforce. We have all the ingredients for economic success. What it takes is the courage to say to someone who wants to build a manufacturing plant, you're more than welcome to be here. The only consideration is that you must incorporate into your manufacturing process the most up-to-date, environmentally friendly ways of doing what you want to do. Because otherwise, we're discouraging what we need. And we have to market this community to the world in a way that has never been done before, to prove to any potential investor that, hey, this is the place. We should be here because we can take advantage of all of these resources.
Huge opportunity.
It's the most amazing place to be. And not only that, their employees will enjoy it here.
Yeah, and
because
that's the other part, right?
Indeed, in order to be able to staff your business, you need employees that want to be here. We have first-class, world-class education. We have a symphony orchestra that's solvent and will play music you would not believe.
Unique to it, and I've been part of supporting it twice nearly when it went under, I was able to step in to.
Well, my time on the board there has been to stop the deficit,
yeah,
bring it into black,
yeah,
and create a legacy fund that will allow it to perform this music forever. And we've started that. That's my effect on that society, to bring it into the real world of managing your resources and building your resources so that you can be the best symphony orchestra, small town or whatever, ever. And that's what we want to do.
It's a treasure.
It is a treasure.
Region.
It's the cultural asset we have here that should never, never be in danger. No, so the community offers all of this: educated workforce, cultural entertainment, and it offers affordable housing. And due to the way we live virtually, anyone can work here virtually if they are in a job that allows them to do their work virtually. They can live here and they can enjoy all of the benefits of this and the great outdoors. You're half an hour away from experiencing the full panoply of nature.
Hundreds of lakes, all within 50 to 100 kilometers.
So this is, as far as I'm concerned, properly marketed.
Yeah.
This city can flourish with investment, with jobs, and a tax base that will allow us to do the things this city requires in terms of infrastructure, in terms of development of cultural facilities, in terms of beautification.
Yeah.
We can do it all if we have an economy that is growing, a burgeoning economy with the right sort of investments and people who want to live here.
You see what I say, Roy, respectfully, is that with the infrastructure that we already have in terms of location, and obviously given with all the natural resources all around us here, that we have the railroads, we have the highways, we have the air. We are a center of the economic development of North America in terms of Asia to the U.S. Midwest and Eastern Seaboard, that I believe that this region will be successful tongue in cheek, I say then, not because of the politicians, but in spite of them.
Yes.
And then the other part that I strongly believe in is that, that especially when you have a city like Prince George that is so uniquely located in this amazing province, this amazing area, that it has to be growth oriented. How do we attract investment, as you indicated, and then have the shingle hanging there and make it a can-do city.
Right.
And I believe that is critically important.
It's critically important that when you do business with the city, that you're not bogged down, that you're not unduly delayed, that you're not encountering an attitude that says, you can't do this. That has to be changed because I've encountered so many people, clients or non-clients, who want things done at the city and find this very frustrating because there's just the response time or even the responsiveness of the city is terrible. So we have to dramatically change that. I'm not saying we let anything and everything through, but we have to be able to. Here's the thing. Regulatory bylaws should tell an applicant exactly what they need to do to get the permit. You shouldn't have to go in there and find out. It should be in the regulatory bylaw. So if you do your homework and you've done all the steps that are required, it should be pro forma to get your building permit. You don't have to have someone tell you every time you go back new things that you need to do. It should be prescribed and known and predictable with subdivision, with building permits, with applications for any kind of regulatory device. It should be predictable, it should be specified. We don't have that. We also have too much delegation of discretionary authority to people. Recently, I sued the city on behalf of a client over a gravel pit.
Did you get a lawyer?
Sorry?
Did you get a lawyer?
Did I get a lawyer?
Yeah.
For whom?
For you. You represented yourself.
No, I represented a company that owns the gravel pit.
Oh, I thought that you did on your own behalf.
And
no.
What I found was that
Yeah.
the city purported to regulate the mining of gravel.
Yeah.
That is exclusively in the jurisdiction of the province. They have no business doing that.
Yeah.
So they have no way of regulating.
By law.
By law, they have
Yeah.
no. So when you look at the regulatory bylaw they had in place on the regulation of mining gravel, apart from the fact they had no business having one,
Yeah.
it delegated to a designated person, they called it, a person in authority, a central discretion which says, if I feel like it, I'll give you a permit. That's essentially what it says in the
Yeah.
bylaw.
Yeah.
So in regulatory formats, that is just unacceptable.
Did it go to court, or
Yes.
did it stop by looking at the regulations, what it really said?
There are two aspects to that case. One is the jurisdiction issue.
Yeah.
And once I started the action and demonstrated how clearly they did not have jurisdiction, the city was ready to agree.
Yeah.
But then there's the damages that go with what they did.
Yeah.
They stopped my client from working
Yeah.
the gravel pit, and that cost him money.
Yeah.
And they had no jurisdiction to do that.
Yeah.
So it's an absolute liability for the city.
Yeah.
Okay. So those aspects go on, but it all stems from an overreach by
Yeah.
the city when purporting to regulate things over which they have no jurisdiction.
Yeah.
That might be the case with regard to environmental matters.
Yeah.
You have a federal ministry of the environment, you have a provincial ministry of the environment. Do we really need a city ministry of the environment?
Yeah.
How many times and how many hoops do people have to go through this?
Yeah.
It should be well regulated by senior governments.
Yeah.
So there's some review is necessary at the local level to
Yeah.
make it possible for a business that wants to start up here to not have to start at the beginning of a labyrinth and never know where they're going.
Yeah.
This has to be clear. to
Critically important.
people. Very
right?
important.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things in my platform, to simplify, to change the attitude, to make things predictable.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me some other points out of your platform that you have.
Well, one of the, I think, resonating things in there is making elected officials accountable. So much of the business of the city, like any city I suspect, is conducted behind closed doors.
Right.
We have projects with
You
huge,
call that in camera.
we could call it in camera, but it's usually in committee
Yeah.
where the public isn't invited.
Are the minutes?
There would be, but
Yeah.
they're privileged. They're not
Yeah.
open, right?
Yeah.
But apart from the in-camera aspects of that, the public does not know what's going on. So you have a project here, right beside where we're doing this podcast,
Yeah.
like $25 million over budget because of incompetence, because they didn't have the right oversight, because they delegated away their authority to do that. They got the cart before the horse.
Right.
That has to be completely reversed, and people should know what's going on. Every time there is a project, a discussion of it should be open to the public.
Yeah.
So that if there's a scandal, in the sense of stupidity, incompetence, overspending, or whatever the hell it is, they are alive to why,
Yeah.
when, who, what,
Yeah.
instead of taking stabs in the dark at every elected politician. There has to be accountability for this, and that's part of my platform. One of the ways of adjusting the accountability issue may be to introduce a ward system here.
What
Why?
is it?
A ward system is dividing the city into districts and have elections on election day. A person can stand to be the leader of that ward, or that ward, or that ward, but you represent a ward or district of the city. You come to city council, you're an advocate for that ward. All the special interests of that area of the city would be your responsibility to present and deal with at the city council table. Why is that important? Because generally electing people simply smooths over all of the things that are really distinct about areas in the city. The people who live in those areas that aren't being actually involved directly don't feel that they're involved in the city. So we have a pathetic turnout at elections here for local elections.
We do, yeah.
You know, it's like if 25% of the people show up, it's a
Yeah.
good day.
Yeah.
If you had a ward system, I think you would have a very good turnout, and you would know that the person you elect has to come back to you,
Yeah.
your area, and report to you, and you can give your message to him. He can report to council.
Yeah.
And I think this is more accountability. This is more
Are
direct.
there examples of that?
Yeah, there are. In fact, larger cities have this in many cases.
Like Vancouver, Victoria?
Well, Vancouver doesn't have that. They're thinking about it, and I think it's long overdue down there.
Yeah.
But Toronto and places like that have it, and it's and down in the States, New York and so on, they have these wards or boroughs where people are elected to
Okay.
be their representative on the council.
Okay.
And I think it opens up government more.
Yeah.
I think it makes it more accountable to the people. And I don't think we can just have this amorphous group handling everything. We need to have more direct communication with the electors.
So that would be one platform issue that you would look at as how do we stimulate more involvement
Yes.
of more people of the city and government, both in terms of election turnouts and then areas that particularly involve them within a city,
Yes,
the
and
wards.
it works both ways. Not only will you increase the involvement or participation of the electors, but you increase the accountability of elected officials to
Right.
those electors.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that every elected official has a duty to has the obligation to be accountable for their decisions and not to hide behind closed meetings,
Right.
but to bring those discussions into the open. Yes, it's going to be entertaining. There might be differing views around the table, but
That'd be enlightening.
wouldn't that be better than watching a typical city council meeting where everybody goes yes, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
They all hashed it out in the back room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's have some participatory democracy. Let's have some direct dealings here.
Yeah. Any other platform issues that you have in addition to those?
Well, not in my platform. I've basically expressed to you what I want to do.
Right.
Every one of the things in my platform is realizable.
Right.
Unlike some candidates where they talk about, cutting the fat and all this stuff. What I'm talking about are things that can be done.
Yeah.
With a council that accepts the platform, and or maybe not, maybe they have a better idea.
Right.
Let's get the best idea implemented to fulfill the terms of this platform. Solving the homeless issue, marketing the city so effectively, reducing the disruptive effects at City Hall of bureaucracy, making people who are elected more accountable. That's the sort of thing that has to be done to make this city more alive in the minds of electors, more compatible with investment and development and growth. That's not in my platform as the idea. I've cherished this one for years, although I don't think it's possible. When I say realizable in my platform, these things can be done.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say perhaps doesn't have much hope, but I thought that one of the things we could have here is a federal prison.
Is it what?
Federal prison.
Okay.
Okay? Provincial jails are for people sentenced to 2 years less a day.
Yeah.
A federal prison deals with everyone who's sentenced to more than 2 years less a day.
Okay.
Big job generator, lots of side businesses developed from that. It'd be a great change.
Where is the closest by federal prison?
That's in the Lower Mainland.
Yeah.
My wife is a Crown prosecutor.
Right.
She puts people in jail.
Yeah.
I take my hat off. I think she's wonderful. But
That
I'm
makes
going to make this a family business.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a federal jail, and she's going to put them in there, okay?
I was going to ask you about that because I know your wife is a prosecutor. That makes interesting discussions around the dinner table.
Yeah, it certainly does. And
Because you find them on the either side of the...
Well, we have to, like there's a pent-up frustration often in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Where you're talking about an issue that has to be resolved somewhere. And she'll come home with that, or I'll come home with that, and we'll hash it out. And we'll talk about the rules of evidence, we'll talk about cases that we're familiar with, and we'll have a glass of wine and
How often do you sleep on the couch and say, no, now you got to battle? No, I'm just joking.
No, but no, it is interesting. She does the criminal law side. I never go in her courtroom.
Yeah.
And I do the civil law side, and she never comes in my courtroom.
Yeah.
So we have lots to talk about, but we
Yeah.
don't get into formal battles.
Well, obviously an extremely interesting relationship for those reasons, but then, and I believe your wife has been too, so involved in the community. And, I want to talk a little bit more about, if you were successful in becoming the mayor of Prince George, it's going to have quite a change to your life.
Oh, it is. I will not be able to practice law full time.
Right.
And eventually retire from the law, because this is essentially a full-time job being mayor.
Yeah.
So I have a huge capacity for work.
Yeah.
That's and I enjoy it. Whatever I'm doing, I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I say to my wife every morning, well, go have fun today.
Yeah.
Find something to have fun about.
Yeah.
Even if it's just solving an intellectual problem, just have fun.
Yeah.
And that's how I approach my work.
Yeah.
I want to have fun doing things.
Yeah.
I want to persuade people to do things. I
Yeah.
want to find out something that really changes
Yeah.
the life of a person, that sort of thing. It's all fun. But the duties, responsibilities, the role of the mayor as the CEO of the corporation of the city of Prince George is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I'm prepared to do that.
Yeah. And because of you having lived here for 46 years and having been so much part of Prince George, you're a very good golfer. You meet a lot of people on the golf course, and you're good. I've heard that. Yeah, you're very good at what you do. And then obviously you've been very, very involved in the symphony in terms of preserving it as a unique part of the city of Prince George, and you played a very major role there. Your involvement with the University of Northern British Columbia, College of New Caledonia, and all the other things that make Prince George what it is, and will be even more so as we go forward, because I believe that the last 10 years have been interesting to Prince George in terms of obviously what we remember most is COVID, for one, a challenge to none the least, and then looking at the fires that happened in 2018, 2019, where Prince George took on a leadership role in the region and is being looked at as a leader and needs that leadership going forward in the future. I believe Prince George has that opportunity to do that and is being recognized for those reasons, and the North must stay together, and for all the reasons that we have talked about. And I think the next number of years are going to be challenges in terms of attracting new investment, and Prince George will grow, and I believe it will grow for all the reasons, not because of politics, but in spite of it sometimes, because we are a natural center, and this will become the inland port to Prince Rupert, and a major economic connector between Asia and the United States, Eastern Seaboard and the Midwest, as well as grow in the other areas of opportunity that we talked about.
I don't think you're wrong, but the component there that's required is leadership.
Yeah.
And that, leadership is often situational. It's not necessarily an innate ability.
Right.
But you have to have the ability to rise to that occasion.
Right.
And that takes courage, it takes vision, it takes commitment, and it takes the ability to persuade other people that your vision of the future is the correct way to go.
Correct.
And I think I've demonstrated that in the past with things I've done.
Yeah.
And I offer that here.
Right.
All my qualifications, all my abilities would be devoted to fulfilling the promise you're describing.
Right. Anything else you want to say before, we have a lot of people watching us, and we are how far away from the election?
Oh, it's in Saturday, I guess. Yeah.
Saturday.
So
not far away from it.
Yeah, a couple of days. Yeah.
So anything else that you want to mention at this point?
I think we've covered it. I don't know. Let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
And this has irony in it. It's kind of an interesting little story, in my history at least. When I was a kid at 14, we moved from Kimberley to Creston.
Yeah.
And I always loved to play soccer.
Yeah.
And but I was a small guy. I mean,
Right.
just skinny, small guy.
Yeah.
And I was watching the school team play, and they had divided their members into two sides, and they were short a fullback. So they put me in as a fullback. I volunteered. And this fellow on the other team, he was about 5'6", weighed about 280 pounds, had thighs
Twice the size of you.
Yes. And he would come lumbering down, and invariably he would kick that ball with such force. But he would kick it from the same point towards the goal every time.
Yeah.
And I put my skinny little shank out there, and that ball hit there and went all the way back down the field to the goalie at the other end. Just because this lummox would kick the same ball with all his strength from the same spot, and I just would move over and put my shin out there.
Yeah.
And this happened about 4 times during the scrum. This happened, and after that, the coach came over and he said, "That's one hell of a kick you've got there." And I didn't tell him it was simply because this other fellow would kick it into my shins so hard. "We want you on the team." So that's how I got on the school team, and we traveled all over the Kootenays playing soccer. And I was a fullback with the skinniest legs.
Superstar.
Yeah, but it was because this guy was just
Yeah.
not very sophisticated when he kicked the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this can happen. By accident, someone can be thrust into the limelight and can, do things, but they have to have the ability to keep up that performance.
And that's the story.
That's the story.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The other thing that I did, Roy, and you did too, you wrote a book, and I did the same, so that, coming from Holland in 1965 and landing in Prince George, and all I had is $25.47, and I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, and didn't have a job. But what I did have, as you can see, is attitude, passion, work ethic. And I say that's the foundation of potentially success. And then I did a whole number of things, and I was not a good student in school. I failed grade 3, and I failed grade 7 3 times, and then my family said, or my dad said, probably, what do we do with them? Send them to, and people suggested maybe send them to the mentally challenged school, or otherwise get them a job. So they got me a job, fortunately, and I became a furniture maker. And then one from there, but I always kind of felt that I had failed. And we were liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945. So I dreamed of going to the land of my heroes, and I tried to go when I was 17, and they wouldn't let me. Then I got drafted in the Dutch Air Force for 2 years, and then I finally won when I was 24. And I wanted to start with nothing, so that I took $150, 1 suitcase, 3 books, and a set of clothes, and I knew I wanted to build a sawmill. That was my second dream, to build a lumber mill. And then I came to Vancouver. I know it would be BC, and then I came off the train in Vancouver, and then I went to the immigration office, talked to a German fellow. I could speak some German, and the German fellow said to me, I told him what I wanted to do. He said, Prince George, 1965. So when I came out the bus, about 3 blocks away from here, 2 blocks maybe away from here, I had my $25.47 in my suitcase, couldn't speak the language, didn't have a job, blah, 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 and started off as a cleanup man. And so then, when I was 57 years old, I picked up a book, and I opened the book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. And I don't read many books, and it was about ADHD. And I said to myself, oh my God, that is me. So I wrote in the book, in Dutch, because I was ashamed of it, and that in Dutch now I finally know who I am. And then obviously I went through my career, and then about 3 years ago, I had thought about this already for a number of years, that at some point I felt I had to write a book. Not so much hurrah, hurrah, John, how successful he is, but more about that in spite of all the things that had happened and all the opportunities that presented itself, and I still felt that I could do it and get beyond that feeling of having failed. And so the book that I wrote is this one here. I'm going to give you a copy of it. It is called Against All Odds. And I always say it took me 80 years to live it, and 20 years to think about it, and 2 years to write it. I'll give you this one here.
Thank you.
And then I did another one that I wrote, and this one is, and as you already know now, that I had ADHD, and discovered that really when I was 57, and reading that book and opened it and thought, oh my God, there's me. But I at that point was already building a mill, and I kind of looked at it, oh my God. Then I started looking at Google and other things, and I thought, it's a disease. What am I going to do? Tell my banker I want to borrow money, but I have this mental disorder? That wouldn't go over well. And it took me time, and then I became more vocal about it 4 or 5 years ago. And in particular, when I got the honor of receiving the honorary doctorates of laws degree from the University of British Columbia, where I had to do, as you did, a presentation, to about 400, 500, 600 people, and I talked more about the ADHD and other issues that affect people, and and then after that I became more and more vocal about it, and then I thought what I have to do is I have to write a book about it, and the book title is ADHD Unlocked, and I consider it a superpower, and the book is already quite successful actually, and not only here but also in Europe, and on a daily basis I talk to people that say to me, I have it, or my son, or something like that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, I think this is probably inspirational for people who are diagnosed with this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I may say so, in the time of my lifetime, the acronyms associated with psychotherapy have multiplied immeasurably.
Yeah.
Everyone in some niche way is affected by some form of disability, it seems. It's become a common denominator among people. So what you're sharing here is probably both inspirational to people who have had this label applied, but it's also instructive about how the world has to label things, has to compartmentalize
Correct.
Disabilities or abilities.
Correct.
And see, in my life, I've seen all of that, just as you have.
Yeah.
But in my life, I've always enjoyed meeting people, whatever their ability or their disability. Because inherent in a human being is a wonderful person.
Right. Yeah. And the other part about it, Roy, is that again showing that, in particular for people that are slow learners, that is not only ADHD, but other people that are affected by other things, by trauma of some sort or another.
Certainly.
And subsequently are slow learners. The book is for that purpose. And I wrote it, and amazingly with my grade 7, I'm a very good writer. And that's not unique to you in terms of what you were saying about your son, that they sometimes have challenges, but they're very bright and very smart in certain ways and excel really. And and so that's what the book is for. Mm-hmm. And then the next one that I'm writing is coming out next July, is that the title is Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And actually what you were telling me in this 1 hour that we have been talking together is that my conclusion of Roy is that he's living the dream, even at already an age not quite like me. I'm 82 in another 2 weeks. But that what you have done in your career, you didn't do for money alone. You were doing well there, but all the other things that you did is because of a passion for whatever it was, but and more than anything for the community and the culture that you feel, and and then as you look back, the idea for me is, if I look back, I don't use it very often. If somebody would say to me, "How are you doing?" in my mind, I say, "I'm living the dream." Mm-hmm. How can it be any better?
True enough. Life can be limited if you let it be.
Yeah, exactly.
If you transcend that with a desire to do the right thing, you can have what you're saying.
Exactly.
The unlimited good life.
Yeah, I agree. Roy, my pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.